Abre la boquita, mija.
Why are these toxic chemicals being kept secret? The chemical companies claim they can legally keep them secret. But does the law allow the EPA to tell us which chemicals are in each pesticide? Michael Axline says yes.
They will act in the interest of the very companies that they're supposed to be regulating. EPA has the authority, I believe, under the Freedom of Information Act, to disclose that information. But as a matter of practice, they don't. EPA has the authority to regulate inert ingredients, to require companies to divulge information about risks to human health from inert ingredients, but they don't do that.
What's really wrong here, though, is that you shouldn't have to file an FOIA request with the government to get that information. If I walk into a store and buy a pesticide can and look at it, I should be able to know what's in there that may be toxic, that may affect my health if I'm going to use it in my house or in the garden.
The chemical companies say they need to keep the ingredients secret from competitors. But Ralph Lightstone figures otherwise.
In a laboratory, they can figure out what the other guy's got. The only people who don't know is the public, that are being exposed to the chemical. If a competitor wants to know what's in there, they'll figure it out.
In xylene, for example, the Environmental Protection Agency is making some rudimentary attempts to classify the risk that attaches to these different so-called inert ingredients, and xylene was at the top of the list until it was discovered that it was in a lot of different pesticides, and then it was moved down in terms of the risk that EPA assigned to it. So there's definitely a trade-off being made at the Environmental Protection Agency between the dollars for the chemical companies on the one hand and the health of the public on the other hand.
Trade secrecy for pesticide ingredients will be halted someday because, as Bruce Jennings points out, it conflicts with the fundamental right to know about toxics in our lives.
Just as workers have a right to know about hazards in the workplace, it seems to me that citizens, of course, have the same sort of right that should extend to their homes, to their schools, to their parks, to their general environment. That you have a right to know what's been applied there, and it's not adequate to simply have some promise, some hollow promise, that either that's been adequately analyzed at the federal or state level, or that somehow that's going to be taken care of in due time. It's something that needs to be addressed immediately. And I think citizen groups need to be very vocal and very aggressive about that, demanding that at various levels.
The most important change, and it would be a very simple change to make, would be to change the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act so that it required chemical companies to tell the public what's in the products that are being sold to it.
The starting point, of course, is that citizens groups have and are organizing to try and stop those kind of spraying programs and find alternative ways of, doing those programs and doing weed control. But if the county is, committed to doing spraying, I think citizen groups should demand that the counties identify all the chemicals they're going to spray and the effects of all of those chemicals. The county won't be able to do it.
I think a parent has every right in the world to say, hey, you don't know what you're spraying around the school. Don't you dare spray that. I think more parents need to say this across the country. More citizens need to say across the country, if you can't tell me what you're spraying in the forest, in our local lake, on our roadsides, in my office, in my child's classroom, on the playground, in our parks, on my foods, if you can't tell me what you're spraying, then you had better not spray it.
Organic farmers are allowed by law to use an extremely restricted list of biological and botanical pesticides. But when they buy even these types of pesticide formulations, they don't know what secret toxic ingredients may be present. Lynn Cody explains what she is doing to help solve this problem.
We really need to have them disclose the inerts because organic farmers are very careful about the pesticides that they choose to use in the first place, and we don't want to have the possibility of using toxic inerts when we have active ingredients that are chosen so carefully to be non-toxic and not harmful to the environment. So we want pesticide companies to give us full disclosure. Secondly, we want them to use non-toxic inerts, and in a couple cases we've actually worked with them to suggest other inerts when they were using inerts that were not suitable for organic farmers. In one case I suggested that they use simple table sugar to replace a filler that they needed to be highly soluble. So that was a pretty simple suggestion which actually was implemented. And then thirdly, we need them to notify us of changes in their formulations because under EPA rules that's not always a possibility. They can change the formulations without getting the pesticide re-registered. So those three things are what we're trying to establish with pesticide companies.
You can help stop this secrecy. Challenge pesticide spray programs that use secret ingredients on roadsides, around schools, in your workplace, in parks, in forests. If the directors of a spray program say that the pesticides they're using have been tested and aren't dangerous, ask them to identify all the chemicals in their pesticide formulations and ask them for testing information on all of them. They won't be able to answer you. Since they don't know what they're spraying, they can't claim to know what harm they'll do when they spray. Currently, the chemical companies and the EPA say you have no right to know which toxic chemicals endanger you from pesticide spraying. You do have that right to know. It simply must be recognized. This is a battle we can win if we all insist that our right to know is more important than the right to spray secret pesticide toxins.